Hi, Alex.
Hi, everyone. Good morning, good evening.
Hey, Susan.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Are we waiting for Lewis?
Or Casey.
Oh, Casey. Yeah,
Yeah.
my bad.
Oh, and he heard you. So there he is. Hi, Lewis.
I don't know if he's on audio yet.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I'm late.
Hey, Lewis.
Hello.
Casey and I just finished up a a board meeting, so he should be joining next couple of minutes. Taking a look on the wiki, I don't see a agenda for today. Is there any topics for today? I just had one, but we can see what you guys were thinking.
It's on the wiki site. I shared, but I thought you usually start off right with the LF antitrust policy.
Oh yeah, let's do that. I just wasn't sure. Yeah, let me go ahead and we can get started. It's look 5 minutes after. Yeah, give me 1 second.
Yep.
Again, bring that up on the screen. And we are being recorded, as you know.
There's one more agenda item as well.
Okay.
Yeah, just let's discuss a call that was held earlier with Google about gRPC support. So we're all aligned.
All right. Well, let's start off with. I got my microphone working. There it is. Let's start off with the antitrust policy. The policy can be found on the Linux Foundation websites, as well as our project wiki. It's important. The policy is important where multiple companies, including potential competitors, are participating in meetings. If you have any questions, contact your company legal counsel. And if you are a member of the Linux Foundation, you may contact Andrew Updegrove at the firm of Gassmeyer Updegrove LLP, which provides legal counsel to the Linux Foundation. Okay, who wants to share?
I'll share. Hi. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, we
I
can.
didn't realize this is actually above the, I missed it. It's on the link. Sorry, I see it now.
So the first topic was, whether we want to change the day or time for Tuesday TSC architecture meetings. Daniel from Tito Every has a conflict, so as his colleague. But the rest of the folks are all okay. Wednesday, I think that nobody's having any issues, but Tuesday architecture meeting, Daniel would be helped if we change the day times, I think. But is
And
there
I think
anyone else?
yeah, Barath, I think it didn't work for Casey either, right?
I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, there you are. Hi. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is for the Tuesday's meeting. Okay, so
Yeah, for some reason it had fallen off my calendar, and coming out of the governing board meeting, I almost missed it.
Well, I think the discussion was around whether Tuesday's meeting should remain at 9 a.m. Eastern or be moved either to a later hour or a different date.
Not this meeting, the other one.
Yeah, the architecture meeting, which is held on Tuesdays. And I know Casey said that he had trouble attending it.
Yeah, from 9 to 10 Pacific, I have a standing meeting with one of the other communities that I support.
Yeah, this is actually 9 to 10 Eastern on Tuesday, so we have our architecture call.
Oh, that's 6 a.m. local. Yeah, that's the XG Vela call, which I also support that community as well.
Now, how critical is it that we have LFN representation on an architecture call? Is that mandatory?
It's certainly not mandatory. The community is the driving force. So you certainly do not need to rely on us. The thing about getting the people, the LF people on the call is, one, to help us better understand what's going on in the community. If there's something that comes up around licensing or maybe some sort of IT or RELING questions that, we may not necessarily directly be able to answer, but we can get you in touch with the right people. Also just kind of fostering, having that understanding of what is actively being worked on in the community, so we can take that to other communities and say, hey, by the way, ODIM is doing this. It would be really cool if you guys could collaborate, because you're doing something similar. Things like that. That's why we like to be on as many calls as we can,
Okay.
just to have that understanding and integration in with the communities.
Okay.
But certainly not required. So you do not need to change the time for me. It would just be, if you do happen to, it would be great. That way I could also attend, but
Okay.
certainly not necessary.
And Daniel, did you indicate that there was an issue with you?
So I have never been able to join these meetings. I never raised it either, because I figured that, first of all, I've seen that many of them have been canceled since we started these meetings. And then as we were not among the initial contributors, when we get more active, maybe it's better for us to assign a kind of hands-on architect instead of me joining those. So in that case, maybe it's better that I assign someone, because I guess it's not mandatory that we have the same representatives on those meetings as these, or how do you see that?
Was there any kind of a requirement around having a quorum on the architecture calls, or are they purely for discussion purposes?
Architecture calls are for discussion, so
Yeah.
that, but it will help you when you're attending the votes, right, to decide.
So we should treat the architecture call as a subgroup of the TSC, and there may be additional groups that may be required if we want to be able to tackle things in parallel. And so whatever decisions are made have to be made by the TSC voting members. But the due diligence on the architectural issues can certainly happen without full quorum. But in the end, you still have the voting members voting on whatever decisions are made.
Yeah, so it's important for the voting members to participate in those discussions, so they know what they're voting on.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
and typically the way this works would be that an architecture subcommittee would or an architecture meeting like this would make recommendations to the TSC, and that's when the vote gets taken, right? It's not a decision that they make
Right.
recommendations.
So Daniel, do you have any alternate slots you're interested in, or I mean, just in case you want to attend?
All I will say is that, it's, at least for me personally, and I don't know if Rafal has similar issues or not, but at least for me personally, my day starts at, pretty early every day of the week, and goes, and I have meetings in the evening as well. And so getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning is kind of expensive, I guess I would say.
So if it was a bit later, that would be better, right?
Yes, it would be better if it was around 9 a.m. Pacific, for example. That would be better. The problem also is that, just like any other international kind of team, our group is dispersed all over the world. And so all the meetings typically happen in the morning or late at night if we have India and Japan.
Yeah, and Rafal's in Poland, right? So,
Yeah, Rafal would fall into the European time. So I think he wouldn't, 9 a.m. is not too late, I think, for Europe, but still
It's not
Yeah.
great for India.
not great for India, yes. And so I don't know if there's one time that works for all the different time zones. That's the problem.
Is 7 a.m. Pacific good for a lot of you? Because that's kind of like one of the prime targeted spots. I understand that a lot of communities want that time slot. Would that work?
Not that day, but if we, at least not for me, not on Tuesday, but if we were to move it to Monday, there's more leeway, I guess.
mm. Yeah, same with me. Tuesday would be bad at that time, but Monday would be better.
We can try it that time and see if that's any better for folks.
And what hour on Monday was that again?
7 to 8 Pacific.
So 10 a.m. Eastern.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah, 3 o'clock.
From AMI side, Monday 10 a.m. It's not possible. We have our global leadership meeting on Mondays.
No, we're talking about 7 a.m. on Monday Pacific.
7 a.m. is 10 a.m. Eastern. So
Yes. Okay.
Tuesday is
And
fine for us.
I have a DMTF call also at that time.
Yeah.
Or Thursday.
Well, Thursday is the composability task force for redfish from 7 to 8.
Yeah.
Thursday is probably the busiest day for the Elephant umbrella, ONAP, Fido, Tungsten Fabric, Open Daylight, all meet Thursday morning.
A perfect storm, huh?
Yeah. Fridays is a possibility. Wednesday mornings is generally bad because it alternates with the TAC and the governing board and the marketing advisory council all meet Wednesday morning as well. So unless it's this time slot, right? This is the open time slot on Wednesdays.
Okay.
Mondays and Wednesdays, this time slot are the only real what I would call clearly open time slots. Friday as well, but we typically try to avoid scheduling TSC specifically type meetings on Fridays, just because when it might be 6 or 7 or 8 a.m. For us on the West Coast, you're talking about 10 or later in India or Europe. What I think 9 a.m. or what 8 a.m. is. I think that's 11 p.m. in China. So if you're trying to bring in that audience as well, that could be a challenge. So that's just kind of the dynamic that we'd be working with. Plus, it would be I don't know. It just doesn't necessarily work. You could also consider Open Daylight does something where they alternate their TSC meeting every other week. So they meet on Thursdays at 9 a.m. Pacific 1 week, and then the alternate week they meet at 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Pacific time to bring in more of their APAC audience who have difficulty coming to those early meetings on Thursday. So there are a bunch of different options, and ultimately it comes down to what the community thinks is best for them. When I do think about it, though, there is one word of caution that Tuesday 6 a.m., which was 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. EST time slot. We couldn't actually pick that one even if we wanted to. now that I think about it, because this Zoom bridge shares the same bridge as XG Vela, and because they are using that time slot as well, we would not be able to run a meeting in concurrence. We would have to get a new Zoom bridge to make that happen, and I don't know that we have the budget allocated for that. I'll do some research on that and get back to you.
Is it possible to use this time slot for both the architecture call and the governance call? And
Well,
just use the time efficiently.
Yeah, setting forth a strict agenda could be the way to go, and then just kind of trying to say, all right, well, we're only going to spend about 10 to 15 minutes on this, and then we'll go back and focus on more architecture things. You could also extend this time like another half an hour, and then just end the meeting early if there's no content.
Yeah, that should be the best option.
Yeah, I
Because
like-
architectural review may not happen on every week, right? Time to time, and new features we are adding, that is happening. So we can
That was my
manage
thinking.
both the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good option from our side also.
Yeah, I like that one. That's good.
So I'm already dealing with a conflict that I cannot resolve. So if we extend this meeting beyond the normal boundary, that would mean, and I don't know, again, Rafael might be able to fill in, but I can only stay for the first 30 minutes. I can't change the other meeting. It's not mine, and it has a bunch of executives in it.
Mm.
So that's been my dilemma in attending this meeting, is that would love to, but I only get 30 minutes, and then I have to go to that other call.
Is it possible to like move half an hour earlier, like instead of 11 o'clock, 10:30? So 10:30 to 12, something like that, 1.5 hours.
Shift the meeting forward an hour to an hour
Yeah,
and a half.
not aware. Yeah, forward just half an hour early, so that instead of 11 o'clock, 11 to 12:30, it will be like 10:30 to 12, something like that. We
That would
start half an hour
actually-
early.
That time slot is wide open on the when I look at the just from the broader LFN ecosystem, that time slot is wide open, so you could absolutely grab that.
Mm. Sounds like an option.
That's on Wednesday, Muthu.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay.
10:30 to, we are
look-
planning.
The one thing I would say about if we put it at like 10 or 10:30, is if you have a number of people joining from Europe or China or something like that, 10 a.m. Pacific time is I want to say that's 1 a.m. in China.
We're not talking about Pacific time. I think we need to pick one time zone and refer to it. I think we're talking about 7 a.m. Pacific time or 7:30 Pacific time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that would not work. Just at least for me, I would not be able to attend because during that time slot from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Pacific on Wednesdays, we either have one of three things happening. We either have a technical advisory council meeting, or we have a marketing advisory council meeting, or the governing board meeting, all take place at alternating weeks in that time slot.
But if we were to start at the bottom of that hour, you could join half an hour into this call. I mean, we were starting at half an hour early so that, for example, Alex would be able to join for more than 30 minutes. We could have the architectural discussions and we could have the governance discussions. And Casey, you could join basically at the same time you joined this call today.
Yeah, that's certainly an option.
I like the idea of trying to use this meeting for both purposes. I'm not crazy about a half an hour early because I'd say 95% of the meetings in my company start on the hour. But if that is a way to get people into this, it seems like we haven't always needed the 2 meetings a week. So I really like the idea of just making this the meeting and getting everything done.
Yeah.
The other option, of course, is to, and we're kind of burning time here, but the other option, of course, is to just, maybe if folks in general are capable of meeting at 7 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday in general, then maybe the first hour could be the architecture discussion, and then we can do a quick ODIM project meeting, and just limit it to 30 minutes.
So Alex, you mean shift the whole meeting 1 hour earlier
Well,
on Wednesdays?
allocate an hour and a half of space, with the first hour typically, could be used for discussions around architecture, right? Or technical discussions that we don't want to get into too deeply in this meeting. Because it's more, for us, this is not just the TSC, this is more of a governance meeting in general. And so we could potentially do that, kind of start at 7 to 8, work on technical issues. And then whatever housekeeping issues we have could be done probably in 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing,
uh,
and I'll say one more thing, and then I have to leave soon, like in 4 minutes here. But I would say that a lot of what we talk about in the meeting like this could probably be achieved on email.
So I would like to offer at least one word of caution. If you plan to shift the meeting into the 7 a.m. Wednesday time slot, and then extend it a half an hour to capture that both of those meetings collectively, is that what I have seen in other communities, this happened in Open Daylight and it happened in Tungsten Fabric as well, is that the architecture or sometimes the other communities call them a technical work stream call. They would start off strong for the first, month or maybe even 6 months or something like that. But ultimately, after a period of time, that content starts to slow down as the architecture is overall stabilized, and then people stop attending that meeting, and then you're focused on just a small piece of governing content that in an hour and a half long time slot that sits on top of other governance calls, such as, again, the governing board meeting and the technical steering committee. It would also be really good if there was a representative from this community going to the technical steering committee calls. As an unfunded project, you don't have voting representation there. That does not preclude you from going there and participating in those conversations. And as a broader ecosystem discussion about how we can integrate the technical projects and understand the technical projects, also getting the ODIM word out to the other projects who are, all, of course, already familiar with you, but may not always have you top of mind because they're focused on their project, but want to integrate with ODIM. You might be missing that opportunity. So that's why I would caution you on overlapping with the back call. But ultimately, this is a community decision. I don't decide this for you. I'm just trying to share what I've learned.
Mm-hmm.
I think Cassie will try this, because having it on 2 days and matching all the calendars is much more difficult than what Alex has proposed. If we can take it as we go forward, right? Like if 1.5 hours is too much, then we can. And personally, I feel it's helpful to us if we end early. We can spend some time on some urgent things also. That way also it's good. But
Can I ask,
yeah,
I've got a quick question since I'm fairly new to the community as far as engagement. So how these TSC meetings, these project meetings, how long do they generally, are they generally full content or are they generally short content?
Well, at the moment, I'd say typically fairly short content, right?
yeah.
So why not just use this call, and you can keep calling it the TSC call, or you can call it the just a project meeting, right? Which I think is what it's labeled on our that's how it's labeled, at least on the Google Calendar that I'm looking at right now. And you just focus primarily on the architecture stuff, and then you reserve the last X amount of time for the call for a quick governance recap or something like that. And then if there's any voting or anything else necessary to do, you do it over email because some people may have to drop early for another call.
Yeah.
The thing with the architect meeting though is that it's kind of a different crew, right? So it's some people that dial in here to the TSC are focusing on things like upcoming events and these type of things, and if there is any changes that we need to do to something in the project. The guys who dial into the architect meetings are people that are very much hands-on developers, and they are kind of focusing on the task that has been sent out via the mailing list that, oh, this is what we're going to talk about today. So they're not necessarily the same guys. So I hear what you're saying, but there is the complication of having two type of groups dialing into the same meeting.
Sure. In that case,
Casey, I'm sorry to interrupt. I do have to leave. Martin, I had a bunch of comments on the gRPC discussion. So maybe I will summarize those in an email.
Yeah. And if you want to have an independent chat on that or something, it'd be good to catch up on it and get your opinion anyway, right? So
yes. So let me try and do something like that then.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Sorry, Casey.
Take
back
care,
to you.
Alex.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that if those are two separate groups really that are focused on those meetings, it does make sense to separate the meetings. I wouldn't recommend an hour and a half long meeting just because the potential confusion. And in that case, we should try and focus on reaching out to those people that are who are primarily in that architecture call and find out what time slot works best for them.
Yeah, and it's been
and we can do a doodle poll or something like that as well, by the way.
Yeah, we try that, and see the thing there, Casey, is as well that like you were mentioning in the very beginning of the project, we had a lot of stuff we wanted to add, and obviously the engineers have been working on adding that and so on, and for the big architecture stuff like a new service or something, we will have an architecture meeting to iron it out before it becomes a real proposal that goes in front of TSC. But very often, if there is nothing to discuss, the architecture meeting would just be canceled, right?
Yeah, that's like I was saying, that happens in all of the communities. Open Daylight has taken the approach of just leaving the meeting up as a standing meeting on their community calendar, but not actually using it that often unless there's a broader topic, and then it gets distributed out via email. I don't think that that's a ideal way to do that. Matter of fact, I kind of want to have that discussion again with that community. There's a number of different approaches, and perhaps what we could do is, instead of having a weekly architecture meeting or something like that, we can have a discussion where we pick a time slot that is standard, and we just kind of communicate over email or chat services or things like that between that group of people that are focused on the architecture. to say, okay, we need to have a meeting this week, or maybe we only have like a monthly meeting instead, but we make it an hour and a half or 2 hours or something like that, so we can burn through a list of topics, and then communicate the any kind of nuance over email. There's a number of different ways to approach this where we don't want to be in a position, or I wouldn't recommend trying to be in a position where you're having a meeting that is lightly or not attended, because then people just tend to start to forget about it or see no value in it and then don't go in the first place. So that's why it could be helpful to just maybe change the cadence of the meeting to bi-weekly or monthly or something like that, and extend the length to focus on a number of topics.
Yeah, makes sense. Bharat, you are really the guy who manages the architecture meetings now these days, so your input is obviously a good one.
It's not a bad idea, but then the challenge with that approach is that once we decide on meeting, getting the people to suggest times every time, right? Otherwise, it's I think a good thing.
It seems to me the challenge we've been having is finding a time that works for the most number of people. And this time seems to work for the most number of people. I think, with all due respect, Jonas, I think there's a lot of overlap between the people who attend the TSC call and who attend the architecture call. I think if we have a crisp agenda set up in advance where we know what topics we're going to cover, the people who are interested in the technical architecture conversations can decide whether to attend. But the onus is on us to come up with that agenda.
And this is where I don't know if the community has appointed a TSC chair, but that's generally where, at least in my other communities, I try and put that onus on the TSC chair to be publishing a agenda either on like a Friday or a Monday in advance of the meeting, in the minutes, and link out the meeting minutes for the page in advance, and that way if anybody else has any other topics they want to add or they want to know what the topics are, they can go out and say, oh, that agenda looks good, or hey, I want to talk about this too, and they can just go in there and edit the wiki page, add their additional topic in advance of the meeting, so people know, hey, we're going to talk about this.
Or what we can do is that keep this meeting on today's day, and if we have architectural items to be discussed, socialize that, as you said, via private separate mail, or we actually have a Slack channel as well, right? We can publish in that, and if we don't have any topics, then people know that we're only talking about governance issues. If there are topics, then we can have the architectural discussion first and then the governance.
I agree with that.
Yep, let's try.
Yep, me too.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Phew.
So, but the thing is, should we keep it at this time or move it half an hour ahead? That's only, depending on people's thing. We can keep still for 1 hour, move it half an hour before. Because
maybe it would be good to have Alex for the full time, because he's very active, right, and have a lot of comments. So that would enable Alex to join for the full hour, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you moving at a half hour or an hour? We discussed both.
Half
hour forward, or
move half an hour forward, but have it for 1 hour.
Okay.
But have the meeting for 1 hour instead of 1.5 hours. In time, like if it's if we need more time, then we will maybe split the TSC architecture discussions, right? Because when they are there, it may be that we need to discuss more and more, so we can take it even offline or exchange links and documents and stuff and carry on those things.
Sounds good. Is that a change that you will make to the Zoom? Who makes the change to the Zoom meeting?
I send out the meetings now.
Okay.
So,
I
yeah.
I think it's good to move ahead. You know, I spend half my life trying to schedule meetings, and it is difficult. So I like a plan that says, let's get a crisp agenda. Let's make a decision right now and see how it works. And hopefully we'll address the folks that haven't been able to make it. And then if you need to make a change in the future, we could do that that time.
Yeah.
And just listening to the various different points that everybody has made, I also think that, and again, this is just from an outsider's perspective who doesn't have a lot of knowledge about the community yet. I would actually recommend keeping the time slot exactly where it is and just work on improving the agenda efficiency.
Okay. Yeah, we'll think about that. All right. So, can we move to the next topic now? Hello.
Yes, please.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the next one is that we are heading towards a release, open source release at the end of August, right? So there's a heads up that the integration testing will start at the beginning of August. In fact, August the 2nd, and then first RC will be released cut out on the mid-August, and the final release for this half would be at the end of August. So I think Intel is working on the Dell. Muthu, AMI has any plans to put in something?
We are working on the design and we started the implementation. I'm not sure whether we can make it up with the 21.8 release. I will give you an update on our release schedule for the composition service in email, Bharat. So
Okay.
I'm pushing team to move forward. As you know, we are facing some integration issues in building the Docker images in the ODIM environment. It's saying a maximum image download is some kind of issue, and HP team is helping us in order to sort out those issues. So we are making progress, and we also started development. I'm pushing the team for it, and I will give you an update whether we can make it by the August end or not.
Oh, sure. So on our part, HP, we'll be some of the Kubernetes stuff which we missed in the last release. That will be ready, and there are other improvements to the same thing, and telemetry. We hope to launch something, and that's the main functionality. Yeah, and there are other things like trying to upgrade the softwares and keeping it updated, and addressing security scans and all that will be there. But we look to be on target for this schedule, right?
Yeah,
Susan?
and Bharath, can I ask also, I flipped over and was actually looking at the roadmap. So I'm glad you and Mutu had that discussion about the composition service. Could we take a look at the roadmap for a second?
Yeah, sure. I'll stop sharing.
Oh, okay. Well, you can go there, but I'll go there.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. I got it. I think. Let's see. Okay. All right. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
Okay. So we've got Redfish compliant telemetry service, update to 2021.1 DMTF schema, Dell plugin, Cisco plugin, BMC emulator, and composition service. And so from what I'm hearing, composition service, Mutu will update on whether that's going to end up being part of the release. Are there any other changes in this? Because this roadmap is from probably 8 months ago. Any other changes we need to note in here?
I think the BMC emulator is ready, but IDRAC, though Rafael had said that they're testing, we need to get the confirmation. I think it would be better if we get that.
Okay, will do.
The rest, HP actions, they look to be on time. I mean, we'll be taking it.
Okay.
Is the telemetry service still out in the middle of next year?
I think that's the next release, right? Whatever is.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. There's Redfish telemetry service in 2108, but then there's also something in 2206.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, we can clean that up too. I mean, it would be a good idea, and we could do it offline in email, is just to ask everybody to review this and suggest updates.
Yeah.
And also whether we're going to stick with 3 releases a year.
Well, and that's a good question. Okay, 2 questions on this. Okay, thank you. Any other comments from anybody before I stop sharing? Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Evan. So the last agenda item was GRPC discussion. Follow up to the Intel, but sorry, we don't have Alex, but do we continue with this, Martin?
Oh, what, the GRPC thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's a couple of folks on the call that weren't necessarily aware of previous conversations with Google. So and you know, so first off, you know, very happy to include you know, anybody else in this. This isn't a sort of, you know, an internal thing, right? With Google. So there's basically a couple of conversations that we had with Google in terms of would they want to start, you know, to collaborate with us in implementing gRPC. You know, when I say us, I mean the ODIM project. And so it's been very difficult to get hold of them. Because the first person that we had you know, contact with this woman Nancy, she went on maternity leave, and so we couldn't get hold of her. But eventually, you know, we have others now that, you know, seem to be very interested to collaborate. So so anyway, we've had a second call with them today, and the outcome of the first call was that Google, well, first off, are very interested in, well, let me rewind a little bit. The news that was new to us was that Google already have a ODIM-like development in that it's you know, they built it to solve some of the issues that we had in you know, having a standard Redfish northbound API talking to different sets of, you know, a kind of heterogeneous infrastructure, right? And so they've developed something in that space themselves to solve their own problems. So their participation in the actual ODIM project or their use of the ODIM code is probably fairly unlikely because they, you know, they have something in that space already. But what they also have done is they've got a software implementation of gRPC to Redfish into working. And the question from the last call was, you know, would they be willing to open source that? And so the confirmation that we've had from the call today is yes, they would be very willing to open source that. And they'd be also wanting, as part of that, to collaborate. You know, they'd be happy enough to collaborate with us. It's looking like that source code will go into OpenBMC as a project, but they'd be happy to work with us as well. And they also have a white paper that they've produced that describes that gRPC to Redfish mapping. And so they're going to release that as well, hopefully today. So once we have that, then Brath, you can sort of, you know, you can put the links up as to, you know, where the code is that they have for gRPC to Redfish, and also the document, so that, you know, the ODIM members can get access to it, if you don't mind. Yeah. So so the follow-up call with Google then will be to, well, a few things. firstly, go through their document, which we can do offline, and then have a call with them so that we're all in sync with that. So that'll happen over the next few weeks, and we'll make sure that those interested are invited to that. The other thing would be also, once we get access to code, then we could either have a separate call with them and discuss the code, or make that part of the call that we'd have that discusses their white paper. We can also, as part of that, then talk to them about the implementation and how we could get this into the ODIM project. I mean, it's a little bit unknown at the moment exactly how much they would collaborate, specifically for ODIM outside of what they already are doing within OpenBMC, but we can get to that later. But bottom line is they're very willing to open source what they've done for gRPC to Redfish, and they're very happy to be working with organizations that are interested in supporting gRPC for Redfish. So that's it.
Yeah, thanks, Natalie.
Any questions on that? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I had a question for Daniel. Daniel, are you aware of this gRPC? I think you're the only team that was never involved in the discussions, right?
No, I was not, and I've been away for the last 2 weeks. But I can read up if you send it.
Yeah, I'll send a link to the page where we have put the requirements, so that you get a better understanding next time you speak about it.
Yeah, and then once we have the documentation from Google and the links to the code as well, then we can make that available too, right?
Yeah.
All right, that was it.
Yeah, I think that's it from my end too. Anything people want to discuss other than this? All right, I think we're almost 9 minutes ahead of schedule. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
All right,
everyone.
thank
Have
you.
a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye.
you all. Bye.
Bye, everybody.